Back in the 1970s, a young, brash San Francisco Bay Area man in search of a direction in life took the advice given to him by a couple of fellows he met at a convention, and he moved to Las Vegas to become a news reporter. That didn't happen right off the bat, and for a brief period he worked as a taxi driver, but one who knew nothing of the lay of the land as a good taxi driver would. He eventually landed a job at the local CBS affiliate station KLAS, and basically covered what the other more tenured reporters didn't want to be bothered with. This included looking into mob corruption in and around Las Vegas and within the casinos and hotels in both Las Vegas and Sparks, Nevada. He had gotten several segments aired, and he began to make a name for himself in the Las Vegas television arena. That name was George Knapp. In the late 80s Learjet aviation era, John Lear came into the station to suggest a story for them to cover that involved a worker at a secret government research facility known as S4 out in the Nevada desert that was part of a larger facility called Dreamland, or Area 51. The lead night anchor wasn't interested in the story at all, and the ever-vigilant Knapp, who was eavesdropping on the conversation, approached Lear as he was leaving the station, having been turned down by the main news anchor man. George sat with Lear for quite some time as he explained a story that sounded too far-fetched to be true. This story was about a man who was doing reverse engineering on wrecked and captured spacecraft out at the S4 facility. That man was Bob Lazar, and his aired broadcast on KLAS by George Knapp forever altered George's life and his overall direction as a broadcast journalist. He became the UFO guy, even though the majority of his investigative journalism was still focused on the activities of the mob in and around Las Vegas and Nevada's gambling world. He produced periodic investigative stories over several decades and exposed unknown areas of the government that functioned behind a veil of secrecy and black budget projects. He became good friends with Senator Harry Reid, who sponsored funding to further investigate strange goings-ons in the skies above us all, and did so in conjunction with the Bigelow Corporation. He traveled to the USSR and obtained interviews and documents surrounding the Russians and their involvement in UFO activities and investigations of reported incidents. George Knapp's career has spanned many decades, and his groundbreaking stories have captivated audiences around the globe. This video is a bit of a homage to the great investigative journalist George Knapp, the OG of the UFO investigation world.
The owner of a website devoted to the Area 51 military base wants to know why federal agents busted down the doors to search two of his homes.
So he says there were actually two teams of more than a dozen agents serving federal search warrants at two locations on November 3rd. But the target of the warrant says no one will tell him what was done or why the search was even authorized.
8 News Now Chief Investigator George Knapp now with the exclusive story.
Secrecy has always been paramount at Area 51, a once obscure outpost in the Nevada desert that might be the world's best-known secret base.
And its very isolation is of the greatest importance.
Since the mid-1950s, Groom Lake has been the location of choice for the testing and development of America's most advanced military technology, including spy planes, drones, and cutting-edge sensor systems. Dreamland, one of its many nicknames, is a magnet for civilian watchdogs, aerospace enthusiasts, the UFO curious, and most likely spies.
We see it flying over Rachel quite frequently.
Jorg Arnu, a naturalized citizen, has devoted much of his life to understanding the base. His website, dreamlandresort.com, is a clearinghouse for all things 51, including photos and videos of the base and anything flying above it. Arnu owns a home in Las Vegas, but bought a place in tiny Rachel, Nevada, so he could be close to the action.
I came to this country because I love this country, and I became a citizen to support this country. I would never do anything to hurt this country, but I don't understand what is going on right now.
Arnu is not anti-government, not even anti-secrecy. He says he's always been careful to screen out content that might cross the line and expose something that is legitimately classified. But on November 3rd, he learned the hard way that something on his site had apparently gone too far. More than a dozen agents from the FBI and Air Force OSI smashed through his gate, broke through his door, and stormed into his home.
I'm asking, okay, what is going on? What are you doing in my house? To which I'm looking basically at this point at a riot shield and a gun that was drawn and pointed at me, and an agent in a stern voice, giving me commands to turn around, hands against the wall. He then proceeded to yank my hands pretty violently back, handcuff me very tight. I mean, it really hurt. I got the message that, hey, these guys are serious.
Arnu was held outside while agents searched the home. He was given a few pages from a search warrant that was more than 40 pages long. Most of the warrant remains sealed, he says, including what he presumes is an explanation of what the agents wanted.
As it is right now, I have no clear understanding what I'm being charged with or why my property was seized. My various computers, 3 or 4 laptops, cell phones, memory sticks, backup drives, my camera equipment that is worth almost $10,000, my drone, everything was taken. I was presented with a list of items that were taken, but not with a reason why they were taken.
At the same time, another team of more than a dozen agents kicked in the door of his Las Vegas residence, rousted and detained his girlfriend, and then conducted another vigorous search.
As she got out of bed in her underwear, no shoes on, barefoot, she was led out into the street, in the middle of the street, in full view of all the neighbors. And subsequently, our homes were searched.
Arnu says he repeatedly asked what he had done and received hints from an agent that one or more images on his site showed something that's classified, but no one will tell him what it is or which image crossed the line. He voluntarily took down some panoramas of the base and said he would have quietly done so earlier if anyone had requested it. Flashback to 3 years ago when up to 2 million online UFO enthusiasts vowed to storm into Area 51. Arnu led the local campaign to discourage the event, even defended the Air Force's need for some secrecy. Many of the people who gather on his website are former Area 51 employees or government contractors, not anti-government radicals.
Do you feel that this was sending some sort of a message to you that, hey, Area 51 is still a classified place, secret things go on there, sensitive things go on there, and you better watch your step?
I believe this was all about sending a message.
Arnu will be meeting with an attorney this week. We'll try to arrange for a return of his belongings. He does not know if he might be facing criminal charges. The FBI and U.S. Air Force aren't talking about the reason 24 agents allegedly busted down the doors at a pair of Nevada homes. That was earlier this month.
8 News Now was first to report on the search warrant served at properties owned by the owner of a website that focuses just on Area 51.
Nevada's top secret military base, Jorg Arnu, gave his only on-camera interview to Chief Investigator George Knapp.
The website dreamlandresort.com has a new wry addition to its content this week, endorsed by the FBI and U.S. Air Force, a sarcastic reference to the November 3rd events that upended the life of the website's owner, Jorg Arnu.
My life has been very much turned upside down by all this.
Arnu has managed the site since 1999. It's a central clearinghouse for anything and everything related to the world's most famous secret base.
There's absolutely nothing that I would consider classified or that I know to be classified on my website. It's pretty much the same stuff that you find on other websites also. And I've repeatedly actually stated in my discussion forum that if ever anyone has a legitimate issue with what I'm posting, let me know and I will take it down.
2 teams of federal agents, more than a dozen in each group, bashed in the doors of 2 homes owned by Arnu, one in tiny Rachel, Nevada, not far from the base, and one in Las Vegas. They seized computers, phones, files, along with a wealth of personal property. But Arnu still has no idea what they were after. He says 40 or so pages of the search warrant are sealed.
Probably a justification for the search, but at this point, I don't know what it is.
Area 51 has become so well known and draws so many curious people to its boundaries that the public sometimes forgets just how strenuously the government defends its secrecy.
I found 31 or 32 of them so far.
In the early 2000s, a friend of Arnu's, fellow Area 51 watchdog Chuck Clark, took us on a tour of public lands surrounding the base to reveal a network of motion sensors hidden in the dirt to warn the base when anyone approached. Days after our news report aired, Clark's Rachel home was raided by the Joint Terrorism Task Force. His computers and cameras were seized. Clark moved out of the state and left Area 51 behind. And more recently, when a Facebook prank drew thousands of UFO curious to the desert to supposedly storm Area 51, the base beefed up its already strong internal security, but also amassed an overwhelming show of law enforcement might outside the base to discourage any knuckleheads from crossing the line. The excessive secrecy surrounding 51 has likely fanned the flames of public and media curiosity, which is one reason Arnou's website exists at all. What's the big secret, the public wonders? Arnou says his attorney told him he will likely never get his computers and cameras returned, even though it's unlikely he will ever be charged with the crime. He thinks this was entirely about sending a strong, if vague, message.
At this point, I don't know exactly what I'm up against, but my best guess is that because my residence is close to Area 51 and my website, Dreamland Resort, is kind of prominent in the field, that I'm being used to send a message to the Area 51 community. And my concern is how far will they go sending that message?
George Knapp, 8 News Now.
Now, more than 16 months ago, teams of heavily armed federal agents kicked in the doors of 2 Nevada homes to serve search warrants that remain mysterious to this day.
Now, the homes are owned by a website creator who has spent years focusing on the world's most enigmatic military base, and that's Area 51. Chief Investigator George Knapp broke the story of the original raids and is here with an update.
You know, we'd like to tell you we know exactly why the search warrants were authorized and what the feds were seeking when they pulled their guns and kicked in doors way back in November 2022. But like everything else related to Area 51, the truth is elusive and murky.
And I hear this banging and a voice.
Retired software designer Jorg Arnou was barely awake in the early morning hours of November 3rd, 2022, when all hell broke loose at his home in tiny Rachel, Nevada. Not far from the outskirts of Area 51, the world's best-known secret base.
The door of my house, they kicked in, and I'm getting out of bed, and I'm faced with probably about 6 or 8 people in my little hallway with a riot shield, guns drawn, pointed at me, commands, turn around, hands against the wall, and before I knew it, I was in handcuffs, dragged out of my house.
Agents from the FBI and OSI, that's the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, spent hours poking through the home. They seized every computer, hard drive, and camera and barked questions at Arnou in an intense and lengthy interrogation.
I was never told what the raid was all about. I was not handed a search warrant until after everybody had left my house, after the whole thing was over. So I still don't know exactly what it is that they're holding against me.
The warrant was authorized by a federal judge, but nearly every one of its more than 40 pages was blacked out. What Arnou didn't know until later was that another team of agents had simultaneously raided his second home in Las Vegas. That door was also bashed in, guns were drawn, and his girlfriend was interrogated. Agents reportedly told the girlfriend that Arnou was a fugitive on the run somewhere, which is how they coaxed her into giving up the names of Arnou's friends and associates.
They must have exercised a lot of force.
Altogether, the busted doors, seized property, and legal fees have cost Arnou a bundle.
All in all, I'm about $32,000 in the hole.
More perplexing for Arnou is that 16 months later, the reason for the raids is still an enigma, like that secret base on the other side of the Tikaboo Valley. No charges have been filed, none of the seized property has been returned, and neither Arnou nor his attorney have been told what prompted more than 24 federal agents to take such dramatic action. The lawyer thinks they may never know, though it is almost certainly related to DreamlandResorts.com, the website Arnou created, a clearinghouse for all things related to the legendary Air Force Base at Groom Dry Lake.
I've been doing this for over 20 years. I'm reporting on things that go on at Area 51 that can be observed from public land. I'm satisfying people's curiosity about Area 51.
Arnou says he's always been careful about what photos get published on his site. He says he does not cross the line by straying into restricted areas and would happily remove any image that goes too far. The agents who grilled him for hours would not tell him if a particular photo on his site showed something it shouldn't have. And whatever justification was given in the search warrant is blacked out for reasons of national security. He isn't the only party left in the dark. Since 2022, Nellis Air Force Base has been pummeled with media questions about the raid, but has declined comment, for good reason. Internal emails obtained by the FOIA website The Black Vault show the Public Affairs Office at Nellis was not told about the search warrant in advance or why the action was taken. Arnu says any foreign spy who wants to see what goes on inside Area 51 could get clearer images from publicly available satellite platforms than from DreamlandResorts.com. He's made it clear to his audience that he won't be intimidated. The website now jokingly declares it's been endorsed by the FBI and OSI.
Are there residual effects for you and your girlfriend who have gone through that?
Up to this date, over a year after the raid, we still have what I would call a mild form of PTSD. In the middle of the night, we hear noise, and it's like, who's coming? What's going on? A number of times, I've actually gotten out of bed and looked around, looked out the windows if there's anybody coming. So there's definitely some residual effect there. Of course, also.
Arnu's attorneys say the feds have up to 5 years to decide if they will press charges or not. In the meantime, the website and its owner will remain in legal limbo. So what's going on out there that might warrant such intense secrecy? What black projects are under development in the Nevada desert? We have some educated guesses, and we'll have more on that tomorrow night.
So they released a few pages of that search warrant. Did they even give a glimpse of what they might have been looking for?
A little bit. So it's like 45, 46 pages long. The first 39 pages were not released at all, not even to the target of the warrant. And parts of the pages that were released, as you saw, were blacked out. But the pages that you can read give a couple of little clues there. They say that they're collecting and authorized to seize anything and everything related to a, quote, military installation, one that shall not be named. We can guess, though. You know.
I know you're going to keep us updated.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Interesting and mercurial, as always.
Thanks, George.
They don't want you to see it. You're not going to see it.
That's exactly right. They have years and years and decades of experience hiding things.
Naturalized citizen Jorg Arnu caught Area 51 fever 26 years ago. For 2 decades, his website, DreamlandResorts.com, has been a digital gathering place for aerospace enthusiasts, aviation watchers, and some who've worked at the best-known secret base in the world. Participants swap stories, post photos, and make educated guesses about what's going on out there in the Nevada desert. By now, the world knows about some of the projects that were born at the Groom Lake facility, the U-2 spy plane, early versions of the Blackbirds, then the F-117 Nighthawks, and stealth helicopters. Jorg Arnu's readers get occasional hints about odd objects zipping through the skies, but big secrets can and are being kept.
Look at some of the exotic planes like the Tacit Blue that was developed in total secrecy. It was flown in secrecy. Then all of a sudden they put it in a museum and said, yeah, we had this for a while.
But too much secrecy can sometimes backfire. Area 51 was obscure, largely unknown in the 1980s when the Air Force illegally seized 89,000 acres of public land around the base to hide something.
Actually 9 flying saucers flying.
In 1989, KLAS-TV put the base on the map for good, with allegations that alien technology might be stashed out there. The designation for Area 51 suddenly disappeared from maps. The government stopped acknowledging it even had a base out there. Too much secrecy only fueled more public interest. Tens of thousands of people have made the trek to the desert to check it out. In the early 2000s, an Area 51 watchdog named Chuck Clark revealed to us the military had hidden sensor systems on public land, miles outside the boundaries, to warn the base of anyone approaching. Clark's Rachel home was then raided by the Joint Terrorism Task Force, a harbinger of what later happened to Jorg Arnu, whose homes in Rachel and Las Vegas were targeted by federal agents in late 2022, with he and his girlfriend, Linda Hello, held at gunpoint, presumably for something that appeared on his website, though he's never been told what he did that crossed the line.
What exactly am I accused of? You're treating me like a hardened criminal, like a terrorist. When they came in here, they asked me, are there any booby traps in my house? I said, booby traps? What are you expecting?
Arnu agrees the military needs a place to test secret technology. When 2 million people vowed to storm Area 51 back in 2019, he led the opposition to the event. But when he sees things from public lands, he takes note. Arnu says the recently revealed B-21 Raider had some of its systems tested in the Nevada skies, long before the public knew it existed. He thinks the rumors about a successor to the SR-71 spy plane are likely true, but doesn't know if the new version is actually called SR-72. The main focus these days, he suspects, drones, unmanned warplanes, and jamming tech.
That's one of the big things out there. They are flying drones, obviously. The Russians, Chinese work on stuff to jam our drones. We work on stuff to jam their drones. Then the next step is, how do we make the drone communication so secure that jamming is not effective anymore?
The public isn't likely to see much of this, though. Arnu says Area 51 has its own Area 51, an inaccessible valley north of Groom Lake that can be seen, but only if you have your own satellite.
The really secret stuff, I mean, they have a whole empty valley just north of Groom Lake, and they have the mountain range where they can pretty much play with anything they want. Nobody can see it.
It's booming out there.
Oh yeah, Area 51 is not going anywhere.
George Knapp, 8 News Now.
Now you can watch George's story about the raid on 8newsnow.com. Jorg Arnu says he's pretty sure the raids were initiated by the Air Force, not the FBI. He thinks the FBI helped because they have more experience in serving search warrants related to sensitive cases.
Bring the issues that matter the most to you. You're watching 8 News Now.
Tonight, the investigation into a, quote, incident involving a military aircraft near Area 51 is intensifying after the Air Force discovered, quote, tampering and materials in the desert. The 8 News Now investigators first to tell you late last month about that incident near Area 51 involving a military aircraft. The FAA even ordered all planes away from that area above Lincoln County, not far from the secret military installation. Well, after cleaning up the site, a spokesperson for Creech Air Force Base, where they fly drones, says, quote, investigators discovered signs of tampering at the mishap location, including the presence of an inert training bomb body and an aircraft panel of unknown origin. Remember, that's after they say they cleaned this all up. Right now, the Air Force and the FBI are investigating. Meantime, the Dreamland Resort, that's a website devoted to tracking activity in and around Area 51, reports the incident was an unmanned aerial vehicle crash. The 8 News Now investigators telling you for several weeks now about a mysterious object of unknown origin that fell from the sky and crashed just near Area 51. And tonight, the public is still in the dark.
So that crash was quickly covered up, both literally and figuratively. 8 News Now Chief Investigator George Knapp thinks the official story, as told by the military, is false.
And we are lucky because George joins us here in the studio with more on what he's now dug up. George.
Well, how quickly might the government respond to a crash of an unknown object? What happened back on September 23rd on public land outside the boundary of Area 51 is a textbook example of how crash retrievals work. And to no one's surprise, pretty much everything told to the public since then is pure fiction.
You can see this in F-18.
Scanners and computers inside this room listen to and record radio traffic inside Area 51 round the clock. On the morning of September 23rd, Jorg Arnu heard some astonishing news.
Had my cup of coffee and I'm listening to Area 51 security, and all of a sudden they get very serious. Locked down the base.
Arnu learned there'd been a large but totally secret air operation in the middle of the night and that something had gone wrong.
So we just had an asset go down. We had an asset go down. This is not Creech security, this is Area 51 security. And they had an asset go down. And then the next thing.
Yeah, clear. Also shown behind is the UAV, unmanned aircraft with ordnance.
He picked up details about strict security measures which were implemented almost immediately. Not only was Area 51 itself locked down, but within a very short time, so too was a large swath of the Tikaboo Valley. It became clear that some kind of craft had crashed miles outside of Area 51's boundaries on public land adjacent to Highway 375, also known as the ET Highway. Arnu jumped in his truck and headed south from his home in Rachel. But while driving on what's known as Mailbox Road, he ran into an armed patrol.
They had the gun in front of them, not pointed at me, but very visibly in front of them. And it was clear they meant business.
He backtracked and headed south on the ET Highway to Groom Lake Road, the main entrance to the base. It, too, was blocked off by sheriff's deputies and military security. A military helicopter with an attached basket was sitting there, presumably ready to haul out wreckage of something. A pair of porta potties suggested the team planned to be there for a while.
Almost the entire Tikaboo Valley was shut down.
At the Little Ailey Inn in Rachel, employees were in the dark about a crash, but saw the beefed-up security at closed-off roads and knew something big was unfolding. Crashes are not an everyday occurrence out here, but locals have seen plenty of them over the decades.
If this thing would have crashed anywhere in restricted airspace, in restricted area, we would have never known about it.
After being turned away from the presumed crash site, Arnu and the aerospace sleuths on his website, dreamlandresort.com, began gathering and sharing bits and pieces of information. The FAA had ordered the closure of airspace over a particular spot in the valley. That was a big clue. Then 4 days after the crash, the security teams vanished. Arnu went back out for a look. The Air Force had used heavy equipment to plow a dirt road across a section of desert. Arnu followed it and found what he thought was the crash site, then shared it online. That's when things got strange, even by Area 51 standards. A second wave of cleanup crews descended on the site, presumably to pick up any remaining debris, but they also used graders to cover the entire area with a thick layer of dirt, literally a cover-up. Creech Air Force Base, which is home to a fleet of Reaper drones and other UAVs, issued a statement explaining that the, quote, unmanned aircraft was one of theirs. The same statement claimed someone had been tampering with the crash site and had scattered assorted pieces from other aircraft, along with an inert training bomb. The Air Force said the FBI was investigating this alleged tampering at the site. Arnu was amused but not convinced.
The only thing they could get that person for is littering on public land.
That's the story, is it came from Creech and now the FBI is investigating. You think that's bogus?
That's absolutely bogus. I think that was designed to make people not go there.
Arnu drove back out and realized the site he first videotaped was a staging area, not the crash site. 200 yards away, the telltale burn marks on Joshua trees indicated this was where the object slammed into the earth. Both he and another aerospace explorer found pieces of who knows what, debris that came from something other than a drone, seemingly planted to confuse anyone who came looking. But they also found pieces under the dirt that are likely the real thing.
I'm pretty sure that this piece came off the actual aircraft.
Arnu, who was at the site of a genuine Reaper crash years earlier, says there's no way the Air Force could ever recover every piece of a crashed aircraft, so they added some dirt and sprinkled in some misdirection instead.
If I were them, I would probably do just that.
Is there a good guess about what crashed? On the Dreamland Resort website, members, including former military and retired defense contractors, chimed in. The leading theory is that the drone was one of a latest generation of AI-controlled craft that accompany advanced fighter planes and can act independently to get the job done.
The Next Generation Air Dominance project is the big thing at Area 51. So the pilot flies along and says, hey, there's a target on the ground, drone 1, go check it out, and if it's a bad guy, take care of it. And drone 1 goes and does the rest.
If the military wants to keep a secret about strange things that fall out of the sky, they have many tools at their disposal. Lock down the base, seal off the public land, put out a cover story, sprinkle some disinformation over the whole thing. Arnu says the middle-of-night operation that ended with the crash is one of the biggest he's ever heard of, nicknamed Black Flag. He has a good idea which hangar at the Area 51 base houses the unknown drones, but is not willing to say more. It is, after all, almost 3 years to the day since FBI agents kicked in the door of his home and carted away his computers and cameras. No charges have ever been filed. Back to you.
We here all want to thank Mr. Knapp for all the great reporting he has done over the years, and his recent work in collaboration with Jeremy Corbell seems to indicate that his work on this topic is far from over, and we look forward to each and every account he puts out. Folks, please take a moment to like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. This helps us a great deal as we strive to create engaging content for our viewers, and be sure to hit the notification bell so that you're notified when new content is released.